Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Platform, AI Data Readiness, here with Trisha and Erin talking AI ROI today. How are you doing?
Doing good.
AIROI, that just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it?
For
I
real?
know. In my head, I was like, how many acronyms should I just try to do as many acronyms as possible
For
at
real.
this point?
Alphabet soup over
Um,
here.
yeah, I'll plan better next time. Um, But yeah, I'll be honest, ROI, not something I usually enjoy talking about. Um, but for the reasons that I think AI solves for, which is why I think this conversation is interesting. Um, we talked a lot about observability last week. And I think that's the unlock, right? Like the transparency we can create now allows us to see and measure the entire story instead of just measuring the thing that has been observable because we only have SaaS tools and we're not good at meetings and communication with each other. So we try to create ROI stories off of incomplete like information context data, right? Um, so I am excited because we can solve something that I think has never really been solved before. Will it help people make decisions about AI? I'm not sure, but maybe we can help some people feel better about it. Um, but we were talking before we went live, Trisha. You're doing an AI for beginners course, and the end is talking about ROI. And that's the challenge is like if your system is not observable, then like you're not going to measure it. But I want to dig into whether or not, like, how do we help bridge that gap for people? I think, how do we help people think about it from like it's not a bridge too far perspective? And usually Erin's pretty good at these kind of conversations. But I'm curious what you're seeing out there, why you feel that way, Trisha, and then maybe Erin, some tips on how to have a conversation like that.
That's fantastic. Because I was the first to say, after having talked with you guys last week, um, putting in mind like what I was going to tell this team this week, or it's a couple weeks from now, but like what I'm going to tell them about how to measure the ROI on their AI efforts. The answer was going to be they don't have anything connected. So, and until they do, or until they do something, and I'd love to be able to give them an idea of what that something could be as a starting point, they're not, they're like, there's no point in them even trying. It's not a really great exercise. So, this is just for a marketing team at this point. This is a marketing team that is overwhelmed with tasks and small company, they have no time to do any of the strategic things that they want to do. Like every member is just painfully bogged down and overextended. And that was the reason that they opted in to some AI learning because they haven't had a chance to learn anything on their own. And we're at this point just trying to automate some of the work they do. Number one, to build them some efficiencies so that they can create more content with less time, do a better job of segmenting because they're not doing any right now, really, not any real strategic segmentation. So we're like, what I'm hoping is that the the results of their efforts will improve because they're going to be more personalized in what they're saying. They're going to be creating content that they don't have now. And they're going to be able to produce more than they're producing now with less effort. But how do you go about
Right, for sure.
And they don't they're not using any kind of time tracking software or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you go about that?
I think especially as it pertains to content creation, you can do like a time to live or like time to first draft or some kind of time boxed metric where you're showing how much more quickly they can create content. And then like a total content volume over a period of time compared to the previous period, I think would give you some good numbers. As far as some of the other pieces, what are they using for AI? Is it like Claude or ChatGPT? Or
they're going to be using Breeze and then free ChatGPT, free Claude.
Okay, got it. One thing that I have been kind of thinking about doing, because I have something similar in my setup where I have like a session start hook in just an MCP for my operating system. So it has a session start and a session stop. And when it does the session start, it basically creates a data point. Mine goes to Supabase. So any kind of database you can put stuff in. So when they start the conversation, it should automatically kick off the session start, store a timestamp, and the client that they're working on or the thing that they're working on, and then have a session end where it marks that time and kind of saves it to your database. So now you have at least some conversation data where you can say, like, this is how long I talked to the AI about this thing, and we were working on client X. And so now we can start to say, like, well, did client X, buy more business from you or whatever that that value is that you're adding. So if it's in the sales process or, this is a marketing team though, so I guess it would be like content specific. And then the segments I think could be just success rates, just kind of A/B test, like this bucket got non-personal or non-AI personalized materials versus the AI, and then have those metrics to compare. Yeah, so I think a lot of it is not going to be strictly to a dollar amount until some of the like downstream effects happen where like you start to see leads coming in from that content or especially with a marketing team. I feel like you're going to have some leading indicators like the content velocity and things like that, and then your lagging indicators are going to be new business from AI generated materials.
I like those ideas. If they're using Breeze, are you still able to do send a timestamp to anywhere?
Chris, can you plug in an MCP to Breeze?
I mean, you could, but let's not get crazy. How do we measure things before we had software everywhere?
Fair. I think especially with a marketing team, velocity, volume, time spent on, like, you could identify like a bucket of your most valuable things that marketers contribute to. So whether that's like new like lead gen ideas or whatever, like figure out what activities lead to the most value, and then kind of track against that to where your North Star is like people doing more of this thing. So if you can take these other things off their plate and say, well, now they're spending 30% more time on those more valuable tasks, that can also be really impactful.
Right. And it's like very quickly the thing that we're not supposed to do or that we've been told, like, you have to get to like an output understanding to make this make sense. But are you creating the right output and saving the time in the right spots on the right things? Where I was going with it, before we had software everywhere, we had to talk to each other, right? Like, and this is like software has almost created like, if we're not measuring it with software, we're doing it wrong. So nobody puts qualitative measurement anywhere near where it should be. Like the first thing every team should do if you're trying to get clear on your data and you've never asked your sales team what happened to win a deal, like that's where you start. And then it tells you exactly what you need to measure. And so the how, it's like there's this pendulum swing where imagine you just didn't have software anymore, but you did have this amazing way to record every conversation you have about how you feel about the process and the impact that AI is having and the impact that teammates are having on you because now they can use AI. We have that, right? Like, and if we just let AI say at the end of the conversation, like, are people feeling like this is a valuable thing in their life right now based on the words that they're using and the tone that they have, right? Because I think just like the trap has always been, like this is where you quickly go because every software we use is designed to help us do that already. And now it's like AI is getting layered in. But can we actually do this? Right? Like, is it doing anything valuable? Like helping me send 1,000 emails instead of 100 emails is using AI a lot for sure, but it's probably not creating any value. And not to mention, it leaves no space for the immeasurable things. Like, are you having an amazing time, like doing your job now? Like most people that have been AI native unlocked, the answer is like unequivocally yes. Sometimes they'll just tell you, I have never had this much fun doing my job before. And from a leadership perspective, I want them to like, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I want them to be forced to hear those things. It's a huge part of the return you should appreciate and expect. Because on the other side, if you're using AI and you hate it, something has gone terribly wrong, right? And it's not AI's fault usually. So I think if you have 10 minutes to tell a team like what they can do, it start talking to each other in recorded lines, like about how AI is like what they want it to do. And I think to the Breeze expectation, like you could have a chat with Breeze and say, this is what I'm doing right now. Like, and then at the end of the chat, say, add this note to the deal or to the contact record or to a lot of different places now, maybe in campaigns, like if we're over in Marketing Studio, right? It's like that is underrated in almost every AI user. Like at the end of your session, just what do we do? Like what happened here? Store it, right? So that's where I would go. In terms of like what those conversations should be about, I think that's where a framework makes it a lot easier for AI to help you like measure those conversations. So instead of, all the usage metrics that when you think about the time saved per task, it's more about it's a lot of quality of life stuff, like honestly. And it's like interesting because we talk about quality of life upgrades as if they're like, let's get to them when we can. They're nice to have. But that's such a huge part of AI, I think, and the value that it drives. So I'd love to go through these 3 dimensions because I think this is as close as we get to like the quantification of it without sacrificing the qualitative metrics at the same time. Does that resonate at all, Trisha? Can you work with that?
Can we see what the 3 dimensions are before we dive into each one?
Sure.
So we got revenue,
influenced,
protected, and
capability built.
Okay.
Right. The hardest to measure and the most valuable. Let's go in order.
Okay.
So when a deal closes, the system knows which AI agents, and I would argue humans as well, touch the engagement for how long and in what capacity. This connects AI activity to actual revenue, not through attribution models, but through conversational traceability. Like, I think this is we should just design every measurement framework right now to do this conversational traceability. And if you can get there, a lot of traditional dysfunction goes away.
I want to back up for a second. You said something I really liked, which was like, I think where you were going with it is if you can kind of train the people using AI at the end of a session with it to sort of like ask a reflection question. How did this go? Tell me what you think about what we developed here, and then store it. For teams that are primarily using Breeze, is that possible, or do you have to be using like a Claude or something like that it can actually store those?
I mean, if Breeze is good at anything, it's adding notes to records, like for sure. Like the more unstructured you can get help from Breeze in, it starts to like work like really well. It's when we try to set all these boundaries and create structure out of unstructure when it starts to be less good for me, in my experience at least. So that's where it is just, and I don't know if you can do,
because marketing teams don't tend to touch people that much. They're like working on campaigns. So they're working on assets a lot of the times.
Right. So like now the campaign and marketing events are like real records in HubSpot now. Right. So I've never suggested this before right now, but if you can put a note on those records, that's probably the place where you want to do it. Because I think the key is like, can we look back after a week, at the end of the campaign, at the month, quarter, whatever, and just have that information somewhere so we have a chance like to consider it. If we don't, then all we have is the structured data, right? So I think where there's a way there, and that's where that might be the goal, that 10 minutes. Like if you're going to use Breeze to get help with copywriting or any of the multitude of things you could use it for, just at the end, and there might be a way to template, like I know there's a way to template prompts. I just don't with custom assistants or Breeze Assistant. I'm just not sure if you can do them at the end of the conversation. But you could use you could create a custom assistant that gets annoying towards the end of the conversation. Like, are you ready for me to make a note? Are you ready for me to make a note? Like, I mean, Claude does that to me all the time. And I know he's like, must be using a lot of tokens this session. Like, it's like 6 p.m. It's like, have a good night. I'm like, oh, we're not done yet, man. Like, good try. Yeah, I think that's a good habit for any user using AI for anything. Like, it's the quickest path to documentation that you can actually start to just make sense. Just try to make sense of what's happening, I think, in most cases. So I'd say on that note, like for revenue influenced and revenue protected, if you don't have your revenue data together, that might be tough. But that last bucket, capability built, marketing doesn't need anybody else to like show some value in that bucket, right? But maybe we should assume, or we can make an assumption in this case that the revenue data is good enough. Curious, Erin, for your take, like if these things on the screen, like let's going through what this looks like. Do these things make sense?
For sure. And I love the just adding a note. Like it's such a like elegant solution to this with Breeze, because I was having the same thought of like how it would be even nicer if it could be like an object that you could report on, but that's leaning more towards the quantitative data that we don't necessarily want to lean on as heavily. But yeah, I think knowing what you're spending your AI efforts on, like which types of tasks. Like I think what I would probably do in this case with the marketing team would be break down the daily tasks into buckets where you have some that are value creating, some that are just time sucks, and everything is kind of focused on this. And then kind of use the distribution across those tasks as a baseline. And then as you add in AI, not only are you going to see where you're doing less things, but where you're adding new tasks, where that capability built thing comes in. So for a marketing team specifically, maybe they're doing a lot less, campaign personalization on like a per contact basis. But now they have the ability to create these lead magnets that are like calculators and like little things that you can just plug in on your website, and giving people the ability to do more complex marketing briefs, where now the downstream team is more equipped to implement everything. So maybe the time to implementation goes down. I think really, if you start with how your people are spending their day as a baseline, I think the ROI becomes kind of an emergent property out of that, where like you're starting to see shifts that you otherwise wouldn't focus on if they weren't kind of broken down into these like what is valuable, what is not valuable kind of buckets.
Yeah, and I see that with a lot of companies, especially when the teams get overwhelmed, is just like I used to recommend to different people on my team, I'm like, take a work vacation, because you have these critical, important things and you can never get them done. So put your whole calendar as if you're out of office this entire week. Don't take a single meeting. You're working, but you're not here, and get the thing done. Like there's nothing like being able to just create some time and space for people to like think creatively. So there's a lot of value in just clawing back some time for them.
For sure.
And this company also, they're going to be getting content remix, which means that they're going to be able to produce a lot more content. Like they've never really been able to produce video at scale. There's probably an opportunity for them to do a lot more video now.
For sure.
which we know should probably do a lot for them because video is just a lot more engaging than text on a page.
Right.
When executed well.
When
Yeah.
executed well.
Yeah. How do we prevent just AI slop land? Like, because that's the risk of like focusing on. I don't like the conversation of outcomes and outputs anymore, especially in a marketing context. Like when you've got to start showing up every day or way more often doing brand new things than you used to do before, like getting to the consistency of doing something every day or multiple times a week that you weren't doing before, that's a win. Like teams need to see that as a win. But doing it in a way where you can observe what's happening at the same time so that you can know, oh, this one didn't hit because we did a terrible job like with it, not because video is not the right thing to be doing, right? Like if you do 5 terrible jobs in a row because you don't know what you're doing with video, like that's a capability, problem. Again, not a video specific problem. So I'm curious, Erin, how you would help a team like think about this, like from that perspective. There's a bunch of things I'm looking at on the screen right now. What you need before you measure. It's like I'm looking at them. I don't want to shit. Like none of the teams have this stuff.
Right.
Like baseline honesty is on here. I was like, uh-oh.
And you were just talking about slop, and I have another client who's like, yeah, we're not going to do that thing anymore because we've tried doing it a bunch of times this year and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle for us. And I'm like, but the reason it's not moving the needle for you is because you spend 5 minutes thinking about this every time you do it. You're not putting it, like, it's slop.
Right. Like sometimes the play is not more content, just, as a general rule. Sometimes it's better content. Like one of the companies that I worked with, and we built like an agentic content engine for them. Like I wasn't trying, and like I was very explicit about this with the team. It's like, I am not trying to take work away from the people who are writing. I'm trying to get you a first draft that is worth your time to humanize it and add your own, like you're still a writer. You still do content. That's still incredibly necessary. What's not necessary is hours of research and doing an outline and figuring out what the header structure should be. All of that can be offloaded and you can focus on, more of that like qualitative measures of the content itself. And, you may want to monitor things like maybe team trust in outputs and customer trust in outputs, like customer sentiment around the content that you're putting out. So that, if you're putting out AI slop and not getting any engagement, that says more about, like you said, like that's more about how you're using the tool than the tool itself. Chris is thinking hard.
I know. I'm looking at Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's think about like what they would need to do. Let's say they take you up on that offer of like just start tracking notes with Breeze. Like we have to help them. And there also has to be like a safety. This is where like the culture of the organization starts to come into play. Like, do they feel safe putting a note on a record that other people like might see and might draw in questions? Like So culture aside, like we've got to create visibility. And whether it's so we talked about like as you're doing the task, as you're in the session. But if that doesn't work and you've already got some kind of review schedule that you're end of week Friday, like what did you do? Like what like was the project? Like go to the campaign record. This is where just like the architecture of your data system can just help you, where you can just show up on the campaign record or in Marketing Studio and immediately have the context you need to start thinking about it. And then you can have a custom assistant that's just like asking you questions about how the thing went, right? So just opening up that conversation so that we can start to get, visibility. And then taking it to the, a lot of this for like, I think that my challenge right now is all of this is based on the observability, like conversation that we were having where the system is doing this for you. And I'm trying to like translate real time because none of it works without the humans doing their part, right? But who is using AI, how often, and what tools, but you cannot connect any of it to business outcomes. The note situation, right? There's still a verbal bridge. It's going to have to happen like during some meeting. And usually this is when like slides get created or the spreadsheet gets created or even the HubSpot dashboard in this case. This is what we got done this month. And you put numbers on the slide, but then when you're presenting, you're having like the real conversation about what the slide means. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes like saying, don't worry about what's on the slide, right? So yeah, I think I need some help walking through these steps in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I feel like some of this stuff is just so tool dependent. Like each different AI that you're using has a different mechanism of getting visibility, a different mechanism of being able to track the things that you're actually trying to do. So I feel like it's very easy to get boxed in with a certain solution and then kind of hit a wall and just stop there. So yeah, I think once you get even just a baseline of who's using it, how are they using it, and for what outcome, like what are you trying to achieve in this conversation? Even if it's self-reported, honestly, like I know that Trisha, you said they're not tracking time or anything, but if your team is tracking time, having them put in their time tracking, I used AI for XYZ, can also kind of help. And it doesn't rely on the tool. It does rely on humans remembering to track their time, which I personally am terrible at. So I'm not saying this is going to work across the board, but yeah, I think kind of to your point earlier, Chris, about having more conversations around what the team is doing can also be helpful, and having those kind of working sessions where it's like, what did you do with AI this week? What did you do? And like that cross pollination of ideas kind of can both give you insights into this kind of data that we're trying to collect, and at the same time kind of spur new uses and more uses. So I think that's a good place to start if you have nothing else.
Mm-hmm. I think also you could, if there's, to your point, if there's a thing that's important, for this team, it's like, well, how much of my week, day is being spent on something strategic versus just tactical? Like I'm just checking off a list of shit I got to do before I can get to the real stuff. Just bringing their awareness to, how much time this week did you spend on the stuff that's your highest priority or highest goal? And can you tell over time whether you're finding more time? Are you able to find more time to work on that? Like, that's the kind of thing where everybody agrees that's where you should be investing your time in any way to allow that team to have more of that time and less of the junk time. If everybody already agrees it's a win, and then you can see that you are increasing that time, everybody's going to be sold on that.
Yeah. I do think there's still some traps there in terms of like, especially as you're learning to use AI. You don't go faster with almost anything that you do because you're having so much back and forth than if you would have just like done it yourself the first time,
Yes.
And so that's where, and again, the culture needs to allow for this, but it does work when you let it go to this this space of like when people ask me why I do so much content and how I can fit in the clients, it's because I enjoy, what I'm doing. And now I doubly enjoy it because all the stuff I used to sacrifice to do this isn't getting sacrificed, like the documentation and the project management and all these things that I would be stressed about the entire day. So I might be doing something I want to be doing and getting stuff done, but I'm stressed all day. Now, sometimes AI offers it up for me, but like, what's the energy level at the end of the day? How do you feel about the day, right? The day you just had, right? If it was I think there's a big correlation between like the more conversational your day was, like whether it was with AI or humans, the more likely you are to have like a healthier kind of energy, let's say. And like some of this is in the framing and like such a point of view perspective where how you frame it matters like so much, because this stuff here, like baseline honesty and conversational infrastructure, again, you take the software out, right? This is a daily stand up, right? And this is that meeting that you can't get sales to show up for like a 30-minute training session, but they will tell you for an hour and a half how awful the last thing marketing did was, or the last show. They will rant for a long time because it's important to them, not because other reasons, but because usually people care and they want it to get better. But this ends up being the only outlet where they can just share what's on their mind and like help themselves release like of the stress of the or anxiety of the day. We can capture all those moments now and like start to take action on them instead of, find ourselves having that same conversation every week. So the baseline honesty is there. It just doesn't usually show up in the systems because we're not putting it there, or we can't put it there. Like I'll never forget the first time I brought a sales team onto Sales Navigator, and I had to explain to a 30-year sales vet who was amazing at his job, like one of the best persons I've met in my life. And he asked the question, so when I connect with somebody on LinkedIn and they connect and say hello, what do I say? And I'm like, the same thing you'd say if you just knocked on their door and they open the door. right? But because it's a completely different like environment and space, it's like, oh, I don't know what to put in this box because it's not a conversation in my mind that I'm used to. So that's where we can let the conversations happen wherever they need to happen now, and then bring it into the system now, even in an unstructured way, to where whenever we do bring it up again about how people are feeling, again, you need the framing, you need to decide what your company cares about, what your team cares about for AI to make sense of it in a lot of cases, which is where unified customer views and value path and these kinds of things help with that dramatically. But I think like for teams that aren't using it at all, you have to find those moments of what are you doing already that we just move it over here, or we just activate the AI button. And now all of a sudden you don't have to change your behavior very much. You just have to put it in a certain spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I didn't think about this, but maybe I'm sure that goes into some of the will to make a campaign record like a real object and associate to all the things, right? A marketing event record is now, a real object where you can do all this stuff. Now the marketing has an infrastructure where they can do things like this inside of the system, right? What other questions, concerns come to mind as you think about how to help either the marketing team that you're training or leaders, understand how to have this ROI conversation?
I don't know how to answer that question. The takeaways that were helpful from earlier in our discussion that I felt I could really do something with is things like if they have a goal to be able to create more of a specific type of content, they're not creating it all. Most companies have some sort of metrics on how much they're creating. Like they have a content calendar. They can like figure out how many new blog posts, social posts, whatever they're creating. So if there's a new type of thing they're trying to do, or they're trying to do more of a specific kind of thing, or they're trying to do a better job of a specific kind of a thing, like by segmenting it more instead of just a blast, whatever. They don't have to like cook the whole ocean. They can go pick out the things that they think are the biggest value drivers and just put some intention around figuring out time spent and outputs, and just kind of like begin to track that over time and see if things shift. Mm-hmm. So in practical terms, that was one takeaway from our conversation today that I think does make it achievable for them. You absolutely can add notes from Breeze onto campaign records. Nice. I personally have never used campaigns on HubSpot. I have never found them very useful, but maybe this is the reason to begin using them. And then I also looked on landing pages and website pages, and there's no note thing there. However, you can add a note to a task which can be associated to the landing pages. Mm-hmm. So I still don't know what to do with that, but I think that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, the campaigns thing is only a week and a half or 2 weeks old as far as it becoming a real object in the CRM. And I think over time, Breeze is going to get better and better at seeing even comments. So the landing pages, website pages, a lot of the marketing area has these commentable places to where you can tag each other and have a conversation. It always gets to can we create visibility over the conversations that we're having first.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, work with AI to start figuring out what reporting might look like based on the conversations that are being had, right? So last thing I want to show, like, so efficiency, like this conversation, I see these two, because don't, like, if you're going to talk to Breeze, I mean, I would argue, like, you just talk and maybe you do some of the stuff in the beginning and it'll start to show you like why it's probably not driving the value, right? But these two things over here, so like from a marketing perspective, requirements quality eliminated a category of build failures. The inability of teams to communicate with each other to like get the output that you want, right? Like getting to like versions 11, 12, 13 of like a one-page PDF, right? That's not okay. But we've got brand guidelines and we've got subject matter experts that need things spelled a certain way, no matter how the marketing says it looks. Like, gotta have all those zeros in there. It's significant digits. Sorry, we don't just get to cut them off because it doesn't look good. This is the kind of thing where AI, in both of these things, like the ability to help you communicate with each other, like should cut down on the number of revisions that you're having and the project work that you're doing. And again, if we're able to systematize it with those notes, right, or with these comments, and then you can tag your subject matter experts in or other people in, like, come and look at it. So we're not going to get confused by the conversation that we would have had otherwise and then misremember. It's all here, right? And then hopefully, you know, the team can then ask Breeze like about that note or about that, you know, comment. And so I think there's a huge opportunity there. And those are the moments where asking the right questions about how AI is working for you. Like, can the team be coached into understanding like the fact that it was just easier for some reason, but you might not know exactly why? Like, say it out loud. Just say it, right? Because we can figure it out. We can look back. AI can help look back at the trends. And if this particular part of the process gets easier just because you're not having to have as many meetings or, you know, get to revisions 10, 11, 12, where everybody's just spent and they just want the project to be done. So, you know, decisions get made based on that stuff. There's so much opportunity to, again, it requires safety. Like, I think that a lot of teams might not have. So I think that's the leadership conversation. Like creating the visibility around just how everybody is thinking and feeling and talking about AI is paramount.
And I would also say, if you're just introducing your team, like as a leader, you're introducing AI to the team, having an ROI mandate from the jump is going to discourage people from experimenting, because they're going to feel like, okay, well, I have to be contributing towards this end goal. And that's just not how a person learns AI. Like, it's trial and error. It's, you know, getting in there and figuring out what the best way to kind of use this tool is. And so kind of like you were saying earlier, Trisha, like give people a little space and time in their day to kind of work through things without the pressure of ROI. And if during that time you can set up some mechanisms to track down the road, that's great. And it should definitely be within, like, let's say 3 or so months at most, that you start introducing these kind of ROI incentives. But yeah, I think if you've got like a brand new team to AI, this conversation is a little premature for that stage.
Yeah. I mean, keyword, you just said trial and error. Errors are costly. You
Right.
spent time doing a thing that resulted in nothing.
Right.
However, on the flip side of that, AI does allow you to do a lot of things faster, fail faster, have more experiments.
Exactly.
But you got to give people the freedom to make those mistakes,
Right.
because the learning curve is, or like, not the curve, like there's a little bit of a barrier there to getting started. And
Like sometimes the learning is the ROI. Like
yeah,
It has to be.
AI is.
And on both sides, right? AI is learning on the other side. Like if you open up a fresh HubSpot portal and start asking Breeze about what your business does, it's either going to say, I don't know, or it's going to say, okay, most HubSpot customers look like this. So I'm going to try and finish that statement as if you're like most HubSpot customers, right? But it will like its ability to learn with you, like it cannot learn unless you're engaging with it, right? And so on both sides, like it's that's the part of this technology and this shift which has never been a thing before, right? And it's very hard when you're looking at one side or the other, humans or AI, to understand that both learning together, like the increases happen so fast if you can just allow yourself and allow your teams to just get in there and try things, right? So I think we're here to help. If anybody's out there like feeling the urgency, you should be, by the way. But there's lots of opportunity to learn and just start trying things, start building things, and so much of it comes back to like how you would want to be communicated with, like as a human being. Like how do you going to work across teams? What do you wish your leadership was doing for you? Like interact with AI in that way. It's been interesting to watch that happen and kind of experience that. So maybe we're done for a while with the ROI conversation. Maybe, but what? Yeah, let's just end it there. I could go on for a while. Since you guys thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Trisha, you know where to find us if you want help with that ROI conversation. Until next week.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.